So, the goal today is that I'm going to get some floor supports that run in between here, all the way along there, because the subfloor needs to go diagonally across like this, and it'll go from the top of the step here across and have an angle, 45-degree angle. So there's got to be something there for it to attach to, and then it'll come all the way to the back to end at this board here, and then the same thing, it'll come across here at angles, so I'll have to attach some boards there. And once I get those support boards in, then I can actually start cutting up these 2x8s and 2x10s and some scrap 2x6s and whatever. So that is where we're going to see how far we get tonight. So we'll put the light up here since the camera doesn't like dim daylight. And we'll get the camera put away. Alright, into your house you go. Alright. This process is pretty straightforward. You're just measuring the sizes of each piece, so I know how long to cut them. Then it's a matter of just cutting them. And obviously cleaning the workbench table saw off. Someday we'll have a barn and I'll have an actual shop space, and I can have everything set up and ready to go, and that'll definitely make things easier. But that's not today, so, you know. The nice part about doing things where it's like, you know, standard measurements, for instance, 16 inches on center means, as a general rule, everything is, for the most part, all the same size. But being that it's rough cut lumber and green lumber, there are some small variations. And being that this is framing nailer comes in super handy. Being that it's winter, having a fire comes in super handy. And it's actually kind of surprising having that fire out there by the opening of the spare room trailer tiny home thing makes a actual difference inside of it, even with it all exposed like this. And I mean, it's not a huge difference, but I can definitely feel every now and again when the wind blows just right, I can feel that heat all the way back here. So it makes it nice to just have that running on cold days. And like I said, this isn't too difficult of a process. It goes pretty quick when you're using a framing nailer. Normally I would try and stagger these, but since the goal is to support the end of each board to make sure there's nothing hanging, I went ahead and toenailed them, which I don't usually like. Well, not usually. I don't like to do. I just don't feel like toenails are as strong as they should be. But they do work and they are acceptable. So when necessary, they will get used. This one apparently I don't know, I must have mismeasured or something. So quick trim on the table saw and fits in nice and snug. I decided to add one more here, just to be doubly sure, since there will be a portion of these corners that will have a piece missing. So I'm just cutting that on the table saw real quick, but then it, like the boards for the siding, I mean, once you get to this point, it goes extremely quick. I actually was able to finish this section of subfloor this afternoon with only a little bit of lost time based on the footage on the battery. I did, however, discover obviously that there was a second leak in this hose. We got this hose when we first got the compressor, and that was one of our wedding gifts, so this is now a little over 8 years old. And I guess that's about as long as a air hose wants to be as far as being reliable. So, I don't know, I'll probably give it another leak or two that I have to adjust it before I worry about upgrading. But the subfloor is pretty straightforward. You just have to make sure that it is at an angle from the joists. So you put it in at a 45-degree angle like I mentioned earlier. And I figured for this first board I just would make it as long as I could and then figure out where it needed to be, and then I've got measurements for the next boards. And I figured I would be nice to future me, and I marked where each joist was on each board. I mean, you can technically tell just by where the screws are, but I figure the better I mark, the easier it'll be in the future. So now it's just a matter of working my way through all the boards and figuring out which angle, which direction to put the angle. For the most part, they go pretty much the same direction until you get to the center, and then you reverse. The hardest part about this is just having somewhere to do the cutting. But just like that, there's the beginning of a subfloor, and I'm currently using screws for this because, as I've mentioned before, the lumber's green, so it still has a lot of moisture in it. Some of these are pretty good. Like these Doug firs were taken down at the late end of winter, so they don't have a whole lot of sap that flowed through them at the time. But they do still have, I mean, they're evergreen, so they do still have some. And so they'll dry and shrink a little bit, not as much as the cottonwoods and other hardwoods, but enough that there will be a little bit of a gap in between each board by the time we come back around and pull them up to actually make to spray the insulation under here. But then when I go to put them back down, I'll put the screws back in the same spot they're in, basically. Although I might get like a 5-inch screw instead of a 4-inch screw just to be doubly sure that it's actually gripping into fresh wood. But I don't know that it'll actually be that big a difference. So who knows? We'll see. And these corners were the difficult part. So I'm measuring just to make sure that I get everything cut where it needs to be cut, because like this back corner, you can see there has to have a little bit, and then this corner's actually got to have a little bit of a compound cut to go around the post. I'll just clean up the corner of that there, and there you go. And again, like I said, just throwing some marks in here and work my way back across with a screw on each board. There are 2 of them towards the end, that back left corner, oddly enough, that I'm probably going to just replace with a board that I'll mill fresh, because they're like an 1/8 inch thinner than the rest of these, which must have been just, I don't know, wasn't paying attention, wasn't obviously using the same measuring point as I milled, but whatever the cause was, I can use those boards for all kinds of other stuff. But I was trying to decide whether I should plane these down or throw them back on the mill and take a blade's width plus 1/16 inch off or something like that. And I just figured, you know what, I'll just go back and replace those 2 that are thinner. Then I don't have to worry about it. But these were all milled a while back, I think in November, and they've just been sitting in here. I guess it would have been December. Been sitting in here ever since. And once you get to these smaller pieces, some of the scraps from the bigger ones work out really nicely, so I only have to do 1 more cut and then it's good to go. Then I'm just trying to find a piece that'll fit in here. That's a little bit of a wonky cut to make, and obviously the kitty is enjoying the fact that there's a new box. New places to explore. She's thoroughly enjoyed having this new open area. Now, the old adage, measure twice, cut once, is a great adage, but you also have to make sure you're measuring against the right spot. So you can see there's a big giant gap there, and it turns out I measured from the wrong side of the joist, so I've got to trace that out and then recut it. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it is, just extra time. And then just trying to sneak up on that to make sure it's as tight a fit as possible. And there we go. Oh, I guess I needed it to fit a little bit less tightly. So now that subfloor is half done. Unfortunately, this is where the battery dies, but I will add in some photos here of the finished product. Alright, so Emily got this first picture for me. This is the last cut that I'm working on making, and it's just a little tiny triangle piece that'll go in the very, very back left corner. But you can see there's the entire subfloor, and so now the floor will be laid down with 1-inch hardwood, ash specifically, that will mill, and that will cover all of the subfloor, and it'll go perpendicular to the joists. So you've got joists running one way, subfloor running 45 degrees to that, and then hardwood floorboards running 90 degrees to the joists and 45 degrees to the subfloor. So that way it'll make a nice solid floor that has no ability to move. Alright, this next picture is of the posts and the first couple of girts for the front door of the trailer, which is the back of the trailer, technically. I did not get any footage of this process because I was just in a hurry that day and forgot to set the camera up, but I did get all of the temporary floorboards kind of sorted and finished so that they would actually create a floor that we could walk on for a while until we get the actual the rest of the subfloor milled up, which is one of the next goals. Alright, and then this last photo is the finished temporary flooring. And again, this is just so we can walk around as we work on other projects and actually get in here and have working space. So that'll be it for today, though. As always, thank you for watching. God bless you and yours, and I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there.